This is a public health announcement brought to you by Heathar Shepherd,
the Primal Pioneer. Live an outdoor life.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Primal Pioneer. I'm your host, Heathar Shepherd, and today you're listening to episode 12, 5 Steps to Overcoming Gut Autoimmunity. During this episode, I reveal my 5 steps to overcoming gut autoimmune conditions, everything from Crohn's, Colitis, IBD, to things like leaky gut, Candida overgrowth, SIBO, and other gut conditions. During this episode, I lay out my 5-step approach to overcoming gut autoimmunity, and this 5-step approach is an approach I've used on helping to heal my own gut, as well as helping many clients heal their own gut as well. This 5-step process is super vital to helping improve the landscape of your gut. In gut autoimmunity, really, we need to give your gut a new memory, a new blueprint to operate from, because currently it's operating from a place of pathology. The blueprint is fragmented, okay? And in order to heal, to fully heal root layers of gut autoimmunity and to weed out all of the pathogens involved in these issues, we need to give the gut basically a blueprint, a memory transplant. And the 5 steps I outlined for you here today during this episode teaches you exactly how to go about this. The 5-step process includes practices such as DNA, GI map stool testing, sunlight, diet, frequency medicine, and mental emotional healing that are all super vital and important to overcoming gut autoimmunity. So enjoy this episode and learning my 5-step process to overcoming gut autoimmunity. Today, I'm going to dive into the topic of gut autoimmunity. This is a condition that baffles most of the Western medical profession. Their treatment strategies include prescription drugs and, in severe cases, surgery, especially in severe advanced cases of Crohn's. The naturopathic and functional medicine approach typically includes strict elimination diets, a host of supplements and probiotics, and I'm sure that most of these approaches and the physicians recommending them are well-intentioned and that they really believe in this model. The only issue is I haven't found either of these models to be super effective in the long term when it comes to helping somebody actually overcome their gut autoimmune condition. While I don't claim to cure anything, I have found 5 steps to be absolutely crucial to improving the landscape of the gut in order to rectify gut autoimmunity. The landscape of the gut needs a total makeover. It needs a new blueprint because it's currently operating from a place of fragmentation. And to truly give the gut an opportunity to recover and heal from gut autoimmunity conditions, the gut literally needs a new memory to operate from, because currently it's operating based on imprints and memory that are based on disorder, fragmentation, and disease. And the key to overcoming gut autoimmunity is changing the memory of the gut. So literally, we have to remove the old blueprint that's based on fragmentation, and we have to replace it with a new blueprint based on health, wholeness, vibrancy, and vitality. This is the key to overcoming gut autoimmunity. And the reason why I'm not a huge fan or supporter of the other approaches is because it doesn't give the gut this blueprint transplant, so to speak, this new memory that it really needs to operate from in order to heal. So during this episode, I'm going to lay out my 5-step approach to overcoming gut autoimmunity, because this approach is exactly what will change the memory and the blueprint of the gut. Now, this isn't a quick fix process by any means. This is a process that takes commitment from the patient, and it takes a keen awareness of how to change the blueprint from a practitioner standpoint. And so the individuals that I've worked with who have the most success overcoming their gut autoimmune conditions, or at the very least drastically reducing their gut autoimmunity flare-ups and conditions, have followed this 5-step process. So let's dive into this process, because the whole key to giving your gut a new memory, a new blueprint, is number 1, having the right plan in place. And then number 2 is your ability to commit to that plan. These things are going to heavily weigh on your body's ability to heal, recover, reduce flares, reduce symptoms that are so common in gut autoimmunity. So let's dive into these 5 steps, because these 5 steps are what your gut needs to create a new memory, a new blueprint. And these 5 steps encompass an effective plan, the plan that I have found really to help support overcoming gut autoimmunity. So let's dive in here to these 5 steps. Number 1 is stool testing, specifically DNA GI map stool testing. This is the stool test that I use when anybody comes into my practice with gut autoimmunity or a gut condition, from constipation to frequent diarrhea to a parasite to gut autoimmunity. We do this test. And the reason why we do this test is because it gives us a really accurate picture as to the pathogen load that you're personally working with. Because in every single gut autoimmunity case, there is a high pathogen load. And the key to overcoming gut autoimmunity and creating a new blueprint, a new memory in your gut, is number 1, determining what pathogen load you're personally dealing with. Because when we know that, we know how to target and focus on specific pathogen removal so that your gut can operate from a new memory once those specific pathogens have been removed. So often the question I get asked is, okay, I've done my DNA GI map stool testing with you, Heather, and I have this high load of pathogens. Where did these pathogens come from? This is a really good question. It's a very common question. And really, these pathogens can come from multiple places, but I'll touch upon some of the most common ways that we become exposed to pathogens that end up in our gut. Some of the obvious ones are from poor food handling or parasite infection or contaminated water that may contain something like E. coli. Those are some of the common ones. However, those aren't actually the most common pathogens that I see in most gut autoimmunity conditions. The most common pathogens I see are actually based on exposure to things like the common cold, flu, bronchitis, pneumonia, and streptococcus or strep throat infections. Typically, we take antibiotics when we come in contact with these kind of pathogens. Let's say we have pneumonia or bronchitis or reoccurring ear infections or strep throat. We typically take antibiotics, especially if we've encountered these bugs or flus as a kid. This is typically how our parents go about treating these type of infections, okay? While it's not the treatment method that I recommend, this is the treatment method that most people have taken. It's the treatment method that my parents took with me. And what happens is the ear infection, yes, often goes away, the strep throat often goes away, the pneumonia eventually goes away, but where does it really go? Because it doesn't fully go away when you approach this from an antibiotic standpoint or a steroid standpoint, okay? What happens is these medications actually push the pathogen down deeper into your body. So you may not actually feel the physical symptoms lingering anymore, but they're actually pressed down into deeper layers of your body that often arise and manifest in different ways later in your life, such as with gut autoimmunity, very common one, okay? Now, what happens is these pathogens get pushed down by the antibiotics into the layer of the gut. The gut is a very warm, moist environment that has a pH level where these pathogens can stay alive. And they stay alive and they also secrete germ toxins. And these germ toxins really cause and wreak a lot of havoc on the gut. And this is what starts to cause the memory of the gut to go berserk, so to speak. So really, we need to take a look at your pathogen load before we dive into any diet or treatment strategy, so we know what pathogens to actually target to be removed from your gut. Now, you could also acquire some gut pathogens from your mother via birth, especially if your mom had group B strep during birth. Okay, this is a common way to pass any pathogens that may have been in the gut flora onto you. So yes, we get seeded with beneficial bacteria during vaginal births, and that's amazing. However, if the mother is dealing with a high pathogen load in her gut, that seeding can also contain pathogens that are passed on to you via vaginal birth particularly. So anyone out there who's looking to be a mother in the future, and if you're struggling with gut autoimmunity, some key steps to take would be, one, let's figure out what's actually in your gut. And then number two, let's get those pathogens out so we don't continue to pass them along generation to generation. Something else that I think is really important to consider when it comes to gut autoimmunity is the impact that antibiotics have not only on the gut microbiome, but on the mitochondria as well. Those of you who have been following me for some time now know that the mitochondria is what makes us function. It's our engine, it's our battery, and it's how we produce energy. And anyone with gut autoimmunity, or any chronic disease for that matter, has compromised mitochondrial function. With gut autoimmunity, we know that the mitochondria at the gut level are compromised, and likely at the liver and brain levels as well. We all have thousands of mitochondria, and your health really is only as good as your mitochondrial function. Now, something that we haven't yet taken into consideration in the health world is that our mitochondria are actually bacterial in nature. So they're a type of bacteria. And when we take antibiotics, personally, my biggest issue isn't actually with their impact on the gut microbiome, but it's on the impact of the mitochondria. So these antibiotics not only wipe out the good guys in the gut microbiome, they also wipe out your mitochondria as well. When your mitochondria are wiped out, you have less of them, meaning you have less engines to operate from. You have less efficacy to produce energy. So it's really key and vital to restore your mitochondrial function after prolonged antibiotic use. Even if that antibiotic use occurred 2 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, this is still going to have an impact on your mitochondria, and we need to take measures to improve your mitochondrial function. This is key when it comes to overcoming gut autoimmunity. A lot of people focus on rectifying the gut microbiome with probiotics. However, this hasn't been a super effective practice in my experience. A more effective approach, I have found is to improve the mitochondrial bacteria, improve their health, improve their number, improve their function, improve their ability to produce energy, oxygen, and water in the cell. And then we're going to be getting somewhere when it comes to overcoming gut autoimmunity. So, number one, we want to test. Let's see what's in your gut. And from that point, we can make a clear roadmap for your personal situation to help you overcome your gut autoimmunity struggles. Step number two is frequency medicine. In my practice, this is known as radionics or the red door practice. And once we have a clear idea of what your pathogen load is from the GI map stool test, then I use a frequency modality to remove the frequency of the pathogens at play. Episode 5 talked all about frequency medicine and radionics that I practice, and I would invite you to go and explore and give that episode a listen if you want to learn more about the ins and outs of how this modality works and how I use it in my practice to help remove gut pathogens from the gut and body. This step is the key step to giving your gut a new blueprint, because we do the GI map stool test to see what pathogens you're actually dealing with, and then we use the frequency modality to remove the specific pathogens you're dealing with from your gut and from your body. Removing the pathogens is absolutely vital to this process. We need to remove the thing that's causing the gut to have a poor memory and operate from a place based on pathology. You cannot create a new blueprint until the pathogens have been removed, okay? Until then, the pathogens are going to be in there running the show. And in order for your gut to operate from a place of wholeness and wellness and health and vitality, we need to remove the pathogens as a first step. This is the most efficient and effective way that I've found to approach this gut pathogen removal. And I have found it to be extremely effective at erasing and removing the pathogens, the memory they've emplaced, and to creating an entirely new blueprint to be put in place in your gut. A common question I get asked is, how long does this process take? How long does it take to create a new memory in my gut? How long does it take to get the pathogen load out? This really depends on the pathogen load that you're dealing with, but it typically takes around 4 months. Now, the faster and the more you're able to do steps 3 through 5, the more expedited this process often is. So let's get into step 3, because this is an absolutely vital piece of the gut healing pie as well, and that is the Sunlight RX. The Sunlight RX is absolutely vital to overcoming gut autoimmunity. All the research out there regarding gut autoimmunity links low vitamin D with gut autoimmunity. Now, you don't get low vitamin D from a vitamin D supplement deficiency. You get it from a sunlight deficiency. You need LDL cholesterol plus 312 nanometer light to make vitamin D. The medical profession wants your LDL around 100 or lower. That is absolutely insane. In fact, I think that's highly dangerous, because what that tells me is that your ability to make vitamin D from sunlight is compromised. And so the vitamin D you take in a pill isn't going to be as effective as if you were to make it from sunlight and build your LDL stores at the same time. LDL cholesterol is not a bad cholesterol. So if you're out on the other end listening in here and you're thinking, oh, LDL is the bad, HDL is the good, that's how we've been programmed to think and believe, but that is not an accurate marker of cholesterol. LDL is absolutely vital and necessary to the entire healing process. And we need adequate levels of LDL cholesterol in order to make energy in a cell, in order for the cell to be hydrated. And what it tells me is when your LDL is below 200 is that you have a low redox potential, meaning your ability to heal and your ability to produce energy is compromised. So All of the individuals I work with, I strive to get their LDL above 200, and this is really key for those with gut autoimmunity as well. So vitamin D needs LDL cholesterol in order to be produced. It needs LDL cholesterol and 312 UVB light. Research out there shows that vitamin D levels over 60 decrease gut autoimmunity symptoms, flares, and decreases the need for surgeries related to gut autoimmunity significantly. So this is really huge. And my goal with people is to get them to make vitamin D the way nature designed you and I to do so via LDL cholesterol and 312 nanometer light. This is why the Sunlight RX and following the Sunlight RX and the hybrid tanning that I outline as a foundation of the Sunlight RX is so absolutely vital to improving vitamin D absorption rates. Keep in mind that gut autoimmunity really boils down to a high pathogen load and compromised mitochondrial function at the gut layer particularly. Your mitochondria are designed to function optimally when you interact with sunlight. And I'm going to break this down for you a little bit here so you can get an idea as to why interacting with sunlight is so crucial for improving your mitochondrial health and decreasing your gut autoimmune symptoms. So for one, there are 5 cytochromes on your inner mitochondrial membrane. So inside your mitochondria, there are 5 cytochromes, and their job is to move electrons across those cytochromes in order to produce energy, oxygen, and water. So the electrons that you move across the inner mitochondrial membrane come from food, they come from sunlight. Cytochrome 1, known as NADH, is a UV light chromophore. So it interacts with UV light in order to achieve this job of producing energy, oxygen, and water. Cytochromes 3 through 5 are actually red light chromophores, meaning they need to interact with red light in order to do this job of producing energy, oxygen, and water. So people with gut autoimmunity, they have a red light and a purple light deficiency. And this deficiency stems from a sunlight deficiency. 42% of sunlight always contains infrared A light, and afternoon sunlight during summer solstice time and 365 days on the equator contains UVB 312 nanometer vitamin D making light. People who have gut autoimmunity have a red and a purple light deficiency, which compromises their mitochondria from being able to operate in a healthy way. We know that even people who take antibiotics, when they're exposed to very strong sunlight, meaning strong summertime sunlight or strong equatorial sunlight, that the antibiotics move right through them and they do not compromise the gut microbiome and mitochondria. However, most people in our Western world here today, we take antibiotics and we also have huge sunlight deficiencies, and this further contributes to the issue. Today, we not only take antibiotics for every little thing that we encounter, we also have a sunlight deficiency and we live under blue light. Our lives are dominated by blue light. We live indoor lives under LED lights, artificial lights, under anything with a tech screen, a computer screen, a cell phone screen. And when we combine this with a high infection or pathogen load, this creates gut disorders. There's a lot of research out there pointing to blue light and its impact on the immune system, how it depresses the immune system, how it depresses the B and T cell activity on your skin and in your gut. And these are 2 main immune modulating cells that are compromised. Their function is compromised when it comes to gut autoimmunity. And the number one way to overcome, to improve a compromised state in the B and T cells is to improve your sunlight exposure via the Sunlight RX. So if you're listening in here today and you have a gut condition, your very best bet is to improve your sunlight exposure. If you can't do a DNA GI map stool test right away, if you don't have access to the frequency modalities that I use right away, what you do have access to right away is sunlight, no matter where you live. So you can easily learn the Sunlight RX over on my Patreon site, patreon.com/sunlightrx, and you can learn the outline that I use to help people heal all chronic conditions, including gut autoimmunity, by following the Sunlight RX on a daily basis. Now, when people work with me one-on-one, I do create a personal Sunlight RX for each case, but really the most common question I get asked by people on my Sunlight RX community is, how long should I be in the sun? And really, if you're dealing with a chronic condition, you cannot get too much sunlight. You cannot overdo it. The daily dosage to overcome gut autoimmunity is about 4 hours of exposure per day, minimum. And this is in that strong equatorial sunlight. And really, you want to follow the Sunlight RX to make sure you have the hybrid tanning method down when it comes to fully accessing the benefits the Sunlight RX has to offer. Because you don't just want to go out in strong UV sunlight, like the first thing you do is 10 a.m. go out and start getting sunlight, or the first thing you do is go out at noon or 1 p.m. or 3 p.m. This isn't going to be the ideal way to do your Sunlight RX. You're not going to get as much benefit. So I highly encourage you to hop over to patreon.com/sunlightrx to learn this method. And when you join there, I will provide you with links on where to start with your Sunlight RX. And if you search for the November 2019 posts, that entire month was dedicated to how to use the Sunlight RX to approach gut conditions. So that would be really great for any of you who are struggling with gut conditions to give a listen to the November 2019, as well as the initial posts for the Sunlight RX. Again, once you join over there, I will walk you through this process. Now, I just want to emphasize, if you skip this step, you cannot heal your gut. I know that may sound intense and hardcore, but really your gut is optimized to function optimally when it's exposed to certain frequencies of sunlight throughout your day. A lot of probiotics or beneficial bacteria in the gut are actually produced not from the foods we eat, but from the sunlight we're exposed to. One of those beneficial bacteria is known as beneficial E. coli. So it's not the pathogenic E. coli that most of us are familiar with that cause things like abdominal cramping and diarrhea and upset stomach, even fever and chills and this sort of thing. The beneficial bacteria are actually highly, highly beneficial for mood, for hormonal health, for sleep. And many people who have gut autoimmunity often have low beneficial bacteria in this E. coli, this beneficial E. coli spectrum. And the only way to improve this bacteria, this beneficial E. coli bacteria, is to improve your Sunlight RX. Literally, you cannot obtain this beneficial bacteria from any food source or supplement. I've tried, it doesn't work. The individuals that have overcome low beneficial E. coli levels in my practice have been highly dedicated to their Sunlight RX practice and have made massive strides with improving their beneficial E. coli numbers simply by using the Sunlight RX for several hours per day in strong sunlight. And there are many bacteria in the gut, I sense, that we don't even know about at this time, that function not based on the foods we eat, but function optimally based on the sunlight and the light we're exposed to. This is why I say if you skip this Sunlight RX step, you cannot heal the gut. This has been my own personal gut healing experience as well as the gut healing experience with my clients. Okay, so number 4 is the jet fuel diet. This is a diet that I created that is specifically tailored to boost mitochondrial function and number. It is based on high octane fuel, and really we want to give your mitochondria the highest octane fuel into your body that we possibly can. No elimination diet or autoimmune diet focuses on this at this point in time that I've come across with. And I've researched all of these diets out there that are popular, that functional medicine and naturopathic doctors and food gurus, they write these cookbooks that are beautiful cookbooks. They're well-intentioned, but they're not providing the patient with high octane fuel that they need to improve their mitochondrial health, number, and function. So if your diet doesn't aim to restore your mitochondrial health and function, then it's not going to be the most effective dietary approach when it comes to healing gut autoimmunity. Really, the most effective dietary approach combines the jet fuel diet with the sunlight RX, and then the bonus that will expedite the gut healing in huge ways is when you do the stool testing and then we remove the pathogens using the frequency modality called radionics. So high octane fuel is based on high octane protein, okay? Nothing that's fake. No soy, no pea protein, no hemp protein. These things are not high octane fuel, despite what the claims on Google or the food packaging says, okay? These things, when we look at how they impact your mitochondrial health, do not provide it with high octane fuel. And this is really the goal. We need the high octane fuel in your protein sources and your food sources to be chock full of vitamin D, cholesterol, minerals that are highly absorbable, and also nutrients that you can absorb that don't compromise your gut absorption capabilities, because a lot of foods out there disturb your gut's ability to absorb and assimilate nutrients, and we want to stay away from these foods when it comes to healing the gut. So some of this may be a little bit obvious, but really you want to keep the diet low starch, low carb, no sugar, at least in the beginning phases. Now, when I work with people around their diet, we want to move to being able to add more carbohydrates in the diet. I never want anyone to be in a full-blown ketogenic diet, 365 for the rest of their life. Okay, this is not ideal. It's not going to support the healing of your circadian biology. We know in gut autoimmunity that the circadian biology mechanism is out of whack, meaning your internal clock is unable to tell time effectively and appropriately. And when you feed your body food that does not align with the light you are being exposed to, so for example, let's say you live in upstate New York and you eat a mango in January. The light you're exposed to in upstate New York in January contains 0 UV light. It doesn't exist at that time of year in that location, at that latitude. The UV light is very strong, however, in the mango. You cannot grow a mango without super, super strong UV light. Now, we know that in gut autoimmunity, there's a red and there's a purple light deficiency. So this is why I suspect many people have flare-ups and allergic reactions to specific foods, because many of the foods people react to actually contain a large amount of UV light. So things like mangoes, fruit, grains, carbohydrates, these foods need strong UV light to actually grow. And if we eat these foods, especially the gut autoimmune patient eats these foods while living under blue light and not getting any UV light, this is going to further create circadian mismatch at the gut level, and it's going to create inflammation at the gut level. I don't suspect that nightshade vegetables are actually an issue. I think the issue is those vegetables actually are grown in strong UV light, and the individuals who eat those and react the strongest to those have a significant red and purple light deficiency. And this is what causes the inflammation. It's why some people can eat these things and be just fine, while others eat these foods and have significant flare-ups. This, to me, and when I look at the biology and when we just look at common sense, when we learn how light impacts our metabolism, our digestion, our mitochondria, how our mitochondria move electrons across it in order to produce energy, and the cytochromes, the electrons have to move across, function based on the type of light you're exposed to, this makes total sense to me. It makes no sense that nature would create a food that we couldn't eat. The issue becomes when humans start to eat foods that are outside of their light spectrum they're being exposed to. The jet fuel diet that I create for my clients aligns the light exposure you get in your environment with the light exposure you get in your diet. There needs to be a marriage here in order to reduce inflammation at the gut level, in order to improve communication between the gut-brain axis, and in order to improve mitochondrial health and function. So this is why one diet fits all approach will never work, because somebody living in upstate New York should not be eating the same diet as somebody living in New Mexico, or somebody living in Brisbane, Australia should not be eating the same diet as somebody living in Melbourne, Australia, or somebody living in Tanzania, Africa should not be eating the same diet as somebody living in Portland, Oregon. Okay, the sunlight exposure is vastly different in these areas. And we need to start tailoring our diets, not based on something that has the most superfoods or the most antioxidants or the lowest carbs or the highest good fats. No, this is a very narrow approach to diet. We need to start looking at diet based on your light exposure. This is how we improve mitochondrial health, mitochondrial function, and how we decrease inflammation throughout the body. And this is one of the biggest missing links that all of the gut autoimmunity people, cookbooks, functional medicine doctors, naturopaths are missing. We're not marrying the light environment that we're exposing our eyes and skin to the light environment of our diets. This is absolutely vital when it comes to overcoming gut autoimmunity. Lastly, number 5 is the mental emotional state. The gut is a really, really great place for us to store emotions, holding patterns. It's a really safe holding place to store stress, fight or flight, grief, anger, any emotion, okay? A lot of people will try to get you to think that one organ can only harbor one emotion, like the lungs harbor grief. Yeah, the lungs harbor grief, but they can harbor any emotion. Same with the gut, same with the spleen, same with the liver, okay? So when it comes to the mental emotional state, it's really important to flush out deep-seated emotional pains, hurts, traumas, not to relive the trauma, but to flush out the pain you may be holding around past hurts, past traumas, to flush this out so you can move through it and approach it from a place of empowerment, a place of ease versus a place of fear, a place of anger, a place of holding that energy in your gut. The gut is a really safe place to hold things that aren't safe to let out verbally or physically expressing them. You know, these often require a very safe space to be able to unveil and let loose these emotions. And when we can't do so, the gut is a very, very safe, cozy place for these things to hang out. And these emotions can actually contribute to things like IBS. They can contribute to constipation, okay, this really deep-seated holding pattern. They can contribute to frequent diarrhea, okay, you just can't hold it in anymore, and the only way that you've trained your body to let it out is from this big diarrhea surge, okay? And we know that the gut is a huge place where the parasympathetic and autonomic nervous system are connected, and your nerves, your emotions, your anxiety levels, your mental emotional state, highly intertwined with your gut. So some questions that I would invite you to ask or ponder if you're out there and you have gut autoimmunity and you're pondering this link between the mental, emotional, and stress levels and your gut health is, what do you feel like you can't digest in life? Do you hold this place of perfectionism that you try to hold everything together? This is a common mental emotional pattern I see in many gut autoimmunity clients, is they really want to perfect things. They want to have this perfectionistic approach to life, to their work, to interacting with people. And they really try hard to keep it all together. They want to hold everything together so it looks like they're actually doing well on the outside, because internally they feel like they're a mess, like they can't keep it together. And so this is one common pattern that I see with gut autoimmunity. Now, there can be any pattern that the gut holds, okay? Any trauma, any pain, any false identity can be held in the gut. And if you're someone out there seeking guidance around these mental, emotional issues and your gut health, I would highly invite you to reach out to my partner, Jen Antill. She is a wonderful resource when it comes to overcoming these deep-seated mental emotional issues that tend to get stored in the body and in the gut, and really having a safe person to talk these things out with is just as important as all of the physical steps needed to take to overcoming gut autoimmunity. I hope you all enjoyed this episode all about gut autoimmunity, and that my 5-step approach really helped to give you some accurate insight as to the steps needed to approach and overcome gut autoimmunity conditions. If the plan you're currently doing isn't working for you, know that there are other answers to your struggles. And I would invite you to go through my 5-step process to make sure you're covering all of your bases when it comes to improving gut autoimmune conditions. So number 1, DNA stool testing. Get your GI map done. Number 2, frequency medicine. Once you have a clear picture as to what pathogens you're working with, use the frequency medicine to remove the pathogens and create a new blueprint, a new memory at the gut level. This is something that I help people with in my own personal healing practice. Number 3, sunlight RX. Very, very key. Get your body as naked as you can in sunlight. Follow my Sunlight RX, patreon.com/Sunlight RX. Use this outline as a main mode to healing your gut. Number 4, jet fuel diet. We want to get the highest octane fuel into your body, into your mitochondria that we possibly can to facilitate mitochondrial healing at the gut level. We need to start thinking about diet in terms of light, aligning the light environment you're exposed to with the light environment that your food was grown in. This is a crucial, overlooked step when it comes to healing gut conditions. And number 5, mental emotional healing. The gut is a really safe place to hold any stored emotions, pains, traumas, hurts. And the bowel function is a really clear indicator as to how one is feeling emotionally, because it is so intertwined with our nervous systems. So if you're someone out there who's struggling with poor gut health or gut autoimmunity, make sure you have these 5 bases covered when it comes to your own personal healing path. And if you need a very simple place to start at this time, start with the Sunlight RX. This will help you overcome that red and purple light deficiency that is so prominent and such a driving factor when it comes to poor gut health and gut autoimmunity. For those of you looking to stay connected, you can follow me on Instagram at sunlight_RX. You can follow me on Facebook at Heather Shepherd, Heathar Shepherd, Shepard. And if you're interested in exploring some healing together, you can visit my site, heathershepard.com, and read more about my healing services, healing plans. There'll be some courses up soon. There'll be the Sunlight RX ebook up there soon. Very excited what this 2020 is going to bring with regard to the healing services and even Sunlight RX boot camps that I will be offering very soon. I hope you enjoyed this inspiring, informative episode all about healing the gut. We'll see you next time. The Primal Pioneer podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any illness. Heather Shepherd nor any of the guests on the show are not responsible for your health or healing outcomes. The information shared on the Primal Pioneer podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only.